single asset into one single state machine. So I mean, imagine a world, right? We're highly liquid assets for forex, stock, energy, crypto assets, and meme coins, commodities, all sit in one single state machine, right? And can transact across all of them, right? And in some sense, that's the grand dream of finance, right?
Yeah.
That is never going to be achievable on centralized systems. Like the only place that is ever doable is going to be decentralized systems,
yeah.
right? You know?
In case anyone doesn't know, why is it so impossible on a centralized system?
Oh, every market is separate. Every market is isolated and opaque, right? For example, like every market like Nasdaq or like CME or like your neighborhood store, you know,
Yeah.
they're their own state, they're their own transaction systems. You can't you can't atomically you can't execute a single transaction across your neighborhood store and Nasdaq. It doesn't happen. It doesn't work, right? You can only execute on Nasdaq itself. You know, you can't execute across the market. You can't execute across like Nasdaq and CME and Binance.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. They're a bunch of little closed gardens.
Yeah, closed gardens. Yeah, closed gardens. Centralized finance is built a zoo, right? You have this like really big zoo, right? And then there's a lot of enclosures. Right, everyone is in their own enclosure.
Yeah, and you walk from one to the next.
That is like in the zoo. Versus the meta, you know, right? The meta is like, you know, you can easily go and transact across everything, right? You know, I think that's the one. Okay, first of all, assets are not enough. Okay, you have all the assets in the world that doesn't work. Okay, they need to be actually in highly liquid markets. Right, that's the key, liquid markets, right? But even liquid markets is not enough. Now imagine one market in Siberia, one market in like Kenya, and one market in like Antarctica. What you actually really want is that you want all these markets to be in the same place, right? And to be very easily accessible by lots of people.
Yeah.
Okay. So all in the same place, by lots of people, right? And the user can transact across all of them.
That's the holy trinity.
Right? Yeah, you're saying right? Like trading, right? They need to be unified, be accessible by lots of people. You will use them across everything, right? That is how you make assets useful, right? Because you can have the best asset in the blockchain and one users. That's Siberia, no whatever, right? You can seriously, you can have all the assets. You can do the most amazing job putting RWAs on the blockchain to one users and you'll be users.
Yeah, right.
The biggest crucial part that's missing about everything here is that we in the conversation today is that we don't talk about it. It's that who can use these assets?
Just creating it is not useful.
It has to be used. Yeah, to be collected and used and arbitrage and whatever stuff. That's important. So what you really want to do is that like you actually want to really create you really want to create this like giant market. Yeah. Right? And especially earlier, creating this is actually not possible in traditional markets. It's only possible in like open, decentralized world, right? Now, and guess what, guys? The cool thing is, right? It's like technically, I think at technical level, it's very possible today.
Yeah.
Right? Because Solana is a single massive state machine, right? That allows you to compose across markets with trivial cost. Right? And Jupyter, right, is obviously excellent at allowing users to transact across all these markets atomically. A market when the asset is in the market on Solana, and there's a Jupyter, it's automatically atomic, composable, and accessible at minutes. Yeah, so I think, but anyway, this gum, right, needs bootstrapping, right? Yeah. So we are really, really, really happy to announce our second major initiative. Big one, yeah. Tell the people. Let's go, the gum initiative. Yeah, we're going to embark on the gum initiative, right?
Take it into reality.
Yeah, I mean, reality, right? Like, how do we like literally live into reality? Let's do it, right? So we're going to book in lots of partners, right? Lots of partners to bring like all the assets to Solana. Yeah. Right, index on Jupyter, right? And then because when we do that, all the assets are accessible at millions, right? With any token atomically. You can get pesos with bulk. And actually, honestly speaking, all you need is terminal, right? Because you can actually do all the exchange stuff can done on the GAM. It's pretty cool, right? So all you need is actually terminal data. Done, right? And then also imagine a world where you can actually buy a Lambo rent.
When Lambo is a real thing
Lambo, right?
Coming up here, yeah.
When Lambo, right? You know, yeah, right. Or you can even donate to Joe Biden with Joe Biden,
or donate to Donald Trump with Joe Biden. And I think what's even cool is like even if it's like you have tokenized real estate that you can then use to buy a pair of jeans in Kenya, or if you're traveling, you can use whatever kind of any forex markets anywhere in the world. It's not just meme coins to reality. It's all assets across all markets to any case that you might want to use.
In some sense, this is the pipe dream of finance, right? In many ways, like this is actually literally the pipe dream of finance, right? You allow someone to choose whatever value they store, right? And then you store them in a way that's highly accessible. And when they want to, it's highly liquid to anything, right? This is literally the pipe dream of finance, And I think it's beauty here, Yeah.
Can't do it alone though.
Yeah, can't do it alone, right? For sure. And that's why to kick some gum and stuff, we actually have a bunch of great partners, right? To already work with us, right? So we have a bunch of RWA providers like Picasso, Terra, Canary, who are committed to kind of bringing the assets onto Solana. Yeah. Right? So they're committed to doing that, and then we're going to work with them to introduce the community. We're going to work with them to introduce the community, right? Help the community get the offerings. Yep. And then saying, and we happen. It's cool. Yeah. And obviously working with a bunch of like awesome projects like Cumberland, and Milk, and WF right, to kind of like do market making.
Yeah.
And for example, Cumberland is actually really, really interested in forex. And obviously we have a number of like really Solana aligned things.
Yeah.
Like Asymmetric and Alliance, my best friends. Right. Obviously the foundation. We're all going to be supporting us in terms of like driving awareness, adoption, and figuring out incentives and things like that.
People bring in assets, people making markets,
adoption.
Yeah, and then adoption as well.
Yeah, that's it. And like assets, like markets and adoption.
Yeah.
So I think also from Jupiter's point of view, right? What we're going to do is that we're going to like work really hard, right? On like bringing on assets, right? And I think it's great. I think it's great that people like Dinero like and because who are coming in.
So we already have these kind of 9 partners lined up here.
Yeah, and we want a lot more, right? We want a lot more. We want a lot more partners, right? Things like that. I think we will need a lot more partners.
Yeah.
Right. Like for example for stables and stuff, or for example whether for stables or for example like more RWAs.
So if anyone out there in TV land is watching this and you're bringing more assets on chain, or you are trying to make markets and add liquidity to it, or just drive adoption generally, I think there's tons of space on the Gum Alliance for you.
What we need is patience, right? Because this is not going to be a system that just launches and boom and goes live, bang, everything, right? And then so we need patience. We also need to figure out the right incentives, right? We also need to actually really get adoption, because like getting people to actually start like owning these assets is not that it's not going to be trivial. Both getting the masses to start using on-chain stuff and getting on-chain people like myself to actually start being comfortable with like owning Tesla on-chain, right? It's not easy, right? So it takes a time to awareness and stuff, right?
Yeah.
It takes to build adoption and awareness and everything. Hey guys, if we manage to build this like giant unicorn market, right, and make it accessible at trivial cost of millions, right, we can make crypto far more useful than today. Yeah, so Gum, let's go.